and hope that Paul gets better. I know something about, I know something about that mouth stuff because I have to take that nystatin on a regular basis myself. And I had that, what do they call it, thrush when I was in the hospital. I thought the only babies got that. But
Well,
okay, funny, quit, Nancy. Stop it. No. Well, you gave Nancy a good funny today, and Andy too, so go ahead and laugh. It was pretty funny. Good to see you. Reba, good to see you and Larry today. Pat, Vicky, everybody. Good to see you. I'm beginning to wonder if Mike still has a wife. I think she's enjoying having grandkids right now, and Mike's making the living. But anyway, we do miss Beverly, but appreciate her and Mike for everything that they've done through the years and what they've done here the last 11 years or so in the work at Sayre. We talked about Jonah, and Jonah is a unique character. Jonah thought he could just run. And you've heard the saying that you can run, but you cannot hide. And that is true. We mentioned Eve a few minutes ago, how Eve tried to run away from God, her and Adam. They heard God's presence in the garden, and they fled from him. Why? Well, they were naked. The guy said, well, how'd you know that? They told off on themselves, didn't they? Well, we know that because this serpent told us that it'd make us just like you. Adam, why did you do that? What? This woman you gave me. You know what I'm saying? This woman you gave me told me to eat it. Look, it doesn't matter what the excuse is. Running is never, unless we're running from our house on fire or something, running is never right. Running is never good. And we see instances through the Bible where people run from God, and Jonah, here in part 1, is running from the presence of God. We're going to look at 4 unique facets, 4 divine imperatives, and 4 divine applications. That's okay, I only have 14 slides left after this, so. In a few weeks after we get through this study, Lord willing, we will be studying Christ, who is the theme of the New Testament. So I hope you can look forward to that and maybe reading up some on that a little bit. Okay, Jonah preaches to Nineveh, and he is running from the presence of God. Fingerprints, unique. Nobody has the same 2 fingerprints. So when they do a fingerprint ID on you, then it's pretty sure they've got their man. Look at the third-party narrative here. The third-party narrative here, as we go through Jonah, is not really about the message, but it's about Jonah. Why? Because he is the fingerprint to this whole story. This whole thing centers around Jonah. And we say sometimes that it's not about me, or it's not about us. Well, yes, it is. When it comes down to obeying God, as Adam and Eve found out, and as Jonah sees, it is about me. It is personal. Christ died for you. Christ died for me. So, it is about me. Jeff May had a sermon one time, you may remember it, Mike. The Israelite story is your story. And that's right. And really, as we walk this life, it's not about the message. What it boils down to is if we're heeding the message and it is about our lives, what we're going to be judged on, and that's our conduct and how we live this life, how we live for Christ, if we obey Him the way to be obeyed. And sometimes, brethren, as we know, the truth hurts. And it did in Jonah's case. So, just run. Just run. Is that the right thing to do all the time? No. We have to face up to the message, and that's one thing even Christians don't want to do a lot of times, is the message. In other words, face the facts. What did sort of Joe Friday used to say in Dragnet? Just the facts, ma'am. And that's what we're going to be judged on. We're going to be judged on just the facts. We're going to be judged upon whether we have obeyed the facts and obeyed every one of them and done what the Lord has told us to do. So you see, the message is perfect. The message is fantastic. The message will get us to heaven, but if we run from the message, and if I run from what the Bible tells me to do, and I try to make it easier, more difficult, whatever, if I change that message, I'm running from God. And that is plain and simple. We may not like to admit that, but that's just the way it is. We are running from God. We're telling God that His plan doesn't matter when we don't heed the message. What happens when somebody gives us directions and we think, we look on, well, there's not any. The only person that uses a road map still these days is, I think, is my dad, and that's about it. Everybody else uses a computer and a GPS, but not him. He pulls out that State Farm Atlas his agent gave him 50 years ago. It's probably changed 100 times, but anyway. And we try to go about it a different way. Well, look. Remember those Allstate commercials a few years ago with that guy? I forgot his name. Man, those were hilarious. And remember the one when he is the GPS and he said, turn left, correcting or whatever. No, turn right. And he makes the guy run into a wall or something, and he starts laughing. You know, we're in the house of the Lord today. We've had excellent Bible studies. But if we don't search the Scriptures to see what's true and what's not, and make sure what I'm saying is right, then I don't have anything. I'm not heeding the message. I'm not looking at the GPS. Jonah is a reluctant prophet. He wants to fail, it seems like, doesn't it? Then I like to lose? No. I don't like to lose, and I know you don't either. How many times, maybe on our jobs or at home, maybe, Bob, Cindy's got a project for you to do. And you need a particular tool. And you wait toward the end of the day to get that tool. And you say, oh, baby, I'm so sorry. I don't have the tool to do this. I'll just have to wait another time. We are running. We don't want to do that. We want to fail. So let's just put it in the way the fact says. We want to fail. We have no intention of doing what God wants us to do. We're afraid, we want to run, we don't feel like it, we think this is a better way, etc., etc., etc. And we can be in here and we can spend all day in this house of worship. And we can sing and we can pray and we can study. But if we're not doing the right thing, I'm going to skip the Lord's Supper today because, if you do it too often, it gets redundant, and we really need to save time, so we're just going to skip over that today. We're wanting to fail because when we skip over any command, it is failure. Jesus and the sign of Jonah. Jonah's told to arise in verse 2 and verse 6. And he's going to Tarshish or to Nineveh. Verse 4, verse 5, verse 12, and verse 15 talks about hurling, going out. Jonah goes down, but the ship doesn't. In other words, he's tossed, isn't he? He is in the sea. Everything else on the ship is safe. But Jonah gets thrown overboard. Now, this is interesting because we hurl and going down is the opposite of arising. He went down. He went out of safety. He went out of that boat and he went into the water. And I guess it's like that ring of fire Johnny Cash sings about. Went down, 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 and it burned, burned, burned. And can you imagine what's going through Jonah's mind? As realization is sinking in that, well, I'm not in the ship anymore. I'm out here in this big ocean or whatever. Can you imagine being all alone in the ocean? You ever been on a raft off the beach and in the ocean and you kind of doze and you kind of drift out? Happened to me one time and I ain't gotten on a raft in the Gulf since. It's scary. Because as you're looking around, all you see it's just water. You don't see any place, you don't see any stronghold, you see no place of safety. And brethren, when we don't heed the message, when we don't make that message personal, that it is talking about me, Christ died for me, Christ died for you, when we don't take that personally and we don't heed it, then we look around and there's no place of safety. All we see is just water. And that's what Jonah saw. No way to go but down. I tell you, you let a football team, I don't care who they're playing, you let them goof off all week and not practice and not watch game film and get a feel for what the other team does, there is no way for them to go but down. When Pat Dye coached East Carolina back in the 70s, they lost to a much inferior team called Appalachian State. They weren't supposed to lose to them, They weren't supposed to come close to losing to that little team, but they did. And so, Pat Dye and his coaching staff decided to implement an extra lap of practice every day called the Appy Lap. And that was going to remind them about the loss, to get them psyched for next year. Well, the next year comes, and guess what happens? They lose to Appalachian State again. And you know why? And Pat Dye later said this. He said, we lost our focus. It wasn't about Appalachian State. It was about us and our preparation and our mindset. Amen. Now, is that's the say what you want to about some of these football coaches. When it comes down to philosophy, sometimes they got it. They got it. And that Appy Lap caused them to do nothing but dwell on defeat, but dwell on the past, dwell on what happened. It didn't cause them to look forward. Sometimes when we get in a situation like this, what do we do? We like to blame everybody but ourselves. Look, guys, sometimes it's my fault. Sometimes I mess up and I do wrong, and I'll admit it. But there are times when things are pinned on us and we try to, everybody wants to assume the worst, and that's just when we just have to do the best we can and turn to God and just do the best we can. But I'm telling you something. If you listen to people that's always trying to negative, always trying to put you or paint you in a corner, coming at you with accusatory tones, you know what? They're going down, but they want to take you with them. Don't let them. Because the Bible is centered around going up. The Bible is centered around going to heaven. Christ says, in my Father's house there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. And we know it's impossible for God to lie. Sometimes we just think we flee God's presence. Listened to the police scanner a few months ago, and I believe it was the county right in this area was chasing some dude. And one deputy said, he got away from me, I lost him. The other deputy came right on the radio and said, don't worry, I got him. I'm right behind him. You can run, but you cannot hide. And Jonah tried to flee God's presence in verse 3 and verse 10. And it just couldn't be done. And brethren, the lesson for us is we can't flee God's presence. And today, so many times we try to flee what's right here. We try to flee what the Lord has commanded to us in black and white. It is plain. You heard the old southern term we use sometimes when we're looking for something and it's right there in front of us and somebody finally has to point it out, and if it had been a snake, it would have bit you. Now let me tell you something. When we don't heed this, and we try to run from what it tells us, whether it be on the subject of salvation, everyday living, attending the services of the Lord, it doesn't matter. When we run from this, we're running straight to Satan. He's the snake. Remember, he's been called a snake before, and he's got us trapped. That's what happened. If it had been a snake, it'd have bit you. 10 years ago, Dad and I went out west in October, toward the end of October. And I'll never forget it. I was walking up and down our street, and it was kind of, the lights from the ball field was kind of shining a little bit, so you could make things out. Well, I had on my set, and I'm bebopping to Sarah Evans, so I'm really not paying attention. And I see something laying across the road, and I'm telling you, I'm not lying. As Jerry Clower would say, if I'm lying, I'm dying. That copperhead stretched almost across the entire road. Y'all remember, don't you? I showed you a picture of it after I mutilated it, or after Dad had mutilated it. I got close, and I'm telling you, I was just like that, ready to take that step and then the other. And I saw it. And I screamed. And I turned around, and wouldn't you know, our street has very little traffic. Wouldn't you know, about the time I screamed and turned around to run home, I run almost into the path of the car. So I run home out of breath, because I was out of shape. Even though I'd been walking, I was out of shape, still am. Mom says, "What are you breathing so hard for?" I almost said, "It was a huge copperhead." Was that you? Scream, and now keep in mind, I'm up the street and the TV is on and they're inside the house, okay? That tells you how much close I was to being bitten. Well, Dad goes to the workshop and get some little flimsy tool that wouldn't kill a fly. So we get in the truck, and I told those people that almost hit me or that I almost ran into, you don't move. You stay right here till we get back. Well, the snake started moving. I said, man, he is not going to get away from me. And there's a little ditch there. And y'all remember the red S10 pickup truck I used to have? With the truck I've got now, getting in a ditch wouldn't be a problem. But, buddy, I'm telling you, I got him. I got him. A sense of victory. And, brethren, when we overcome Satan, the snake, what a victory. We sing a song, "Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and he bought me with his redeeming love," or blood, one of the two. But that's right. That's right. Nothing good happens when we flee God's presence, but everything good happens when we flee Satan's presence. And we turn around. In my case, I ran home. In our case, we run back to God. Why did he go to Tarshish? Remember the story about the city? Why did he run there? We talked about it in Isaiah chapter 66 and verse 19. Well, you know, sometimes when you run, you're running. You don't really know where you're going. You're just running. Running from anywhere but what is behind you. Jonah's running. At this point, he doesn't care where he's going. Have we ran from the truth? Have we ran from what the Bible says? You ever known somebody to walk out of church services because they got their toes stepped on? Do they know where they're going when they leave here? No. They're just running. There was a case back in the late 70s at Gardendale when I went to, when I was a teenager and went to church there. And there was a guy that I highly respect even to this day. I think he was wrong in this, but I still think a lot of this fellow. And there was something to do with hiring a preacher, and something to do with the guy that was preaching was at work. I think he was in the medical field. And the guy that got up and stomped out very loudly so everybody could hear him was the dude that, as the speaker said, and I understand has been some pretty good preachers that's being kicked around pretty good. Well, that struck a nerve with that dude, and he walked out. He went straight to a neighboring congregation. I think the best thing would have been for him was, after everything cooled down, to come back, and if he wanted to leave the church at Gardendale or wherever, then fine. But go back and at least apologize. Where he ran he ran to a sound congregation. But it was the way he did it. And they took him, without... They didn't have a lot of that checking up these days. Those days like we do now. But he ran to the right place, but he ran for the wrong reason. Sometimes we've got to face up what's behind us. And the further we run from it, the further it is, the harder it is to face it. Remember the song by George Strait? Came out, I think, in 2006. The Seashores of Old Mexico, written by Merle Haggard. And it's in that song, long story short, that he is running from Arizona and the judge and the jail term that the judge had in mind. So he crosses the border. He runs into somebody, some senorita one night, and she takes all the money he's got. And then the next night, he rides with some farmers somewhere else. I forgot who it was. But then he wakes up in another senorita's lap. And if you've listened to the song, he's found what he's looking for. Because it says her Mexican husband, she had no great concern. In other words, this is mine right here. This is why I ran. You think word's going to get back to that judge back in Arizona? That he's found peace and he's found what he was looking for? And you think the judge is going to overturn that? No. That doesn't matter. He ran for the wrong reason, and he ran into what seemed like a good place, and it seemed right. Does that sound familiar? Is that us sometimes? Do we run from something that we should be facing? And we run right into something that seems right, but it's wrong. That is what they call the silent killer. Because Satan has masked your conscience. Satan has told us, oh, everything's okay. Don't fret, everything's cool. Imagine Satan saying everything's cool. Anyway, that's not the way it works. You cannot run from God, because we can run from this and we can say, well, I got a friend right now I'm working with, and he's running from this, and he knows I know, and more importantly, he knows God knows that he can't run from the truth. He can run from this church building. He can run from us, but he cannot run from this, the Bible, and the truths that are found in it. You can't run from God. And it's unfortunately, when the further we run, the more confident we get about our decision. I've tried that running, Mike, remember? 15 years or so ago. I tried running somewhere else, another county. Tried to start a new life, but you know what? The problems here were still there. You can't run from them. They're not automatically going to go away. Psalm 139, verse 7 through 10. You can read that on the screen. I'm not going to take time to read it. I will go back. And if I take verse 9, if I take the wings of dawn, if I dwell in the remotest part of the sea, even there your hand will lead me, and your right hand will lay hold of me. So, brethren, don't run to Satan and don't run into trouble. The Lord, no matter where we run, no matter where we are, the Lord is going to take care of us. Let's look at some divine application. There's going to be punishment, and there may be a cost involved. You get a speeding ticket, you're sorry you sped. You're sorry. Jeff May got a warning ticket one time, I'm telling off on it, a few years ago, and it was from the state troopers. And I asked him, I said, how in the world did you get out of a ticket with the state troopers? Whoa, well. But anyway, they gave him a warning ticket. I mean, why go to the, if you're going to write somebody a warning ticket, why go to the point of writing them a warning ticket? But anyway, he got a warning ticket. And on the back had a, what I called a guilty conscience statement. And the bottom line was this, is that some, a child might have died tonight, and the bottom line is because you were speeding and you wouldn't have seen it, blah, blah, blah. And I told Jeff, I said, no, you know. He said, man, that hurt worse than the ticket. I said, I bet it did. But yeah, it's a little thing called consequences. And the Lord's going to discipline. I remember one time we had some friends from church over one Sunday afternoon, and me and their son was playing. We were buddies, and they had a little baby, and it was asleep in one of our bedrooms. And we were told to be real quiet, you know. Well, my buddy came in, and he accidentally slammed the door. And the look his dad gave him must have been, uh-oh, I am in trouble. I didn't mean to. Man, his dad popped him across the shoulder and said, I didn't mean to either. There's consequences to everything. In Proverbs 3:11 and Hebrews chapter 12, verse 5 through 8. And sometimes to get our attention, he sends a storm. And sometimes when he sends a storm, it's because of stubbornness, pride, wanting to do things my way or the highway. He had to get Jonah's attention. Jonah was an important piece of this part of the Bible. He had to get Jonah's attention. And brother, you and I are an important part of the fields of labor out there. So there's times God's got to get our attention. We talk about fellowship. And we do that to try to get the person's attention. Mike and them did it at Gordondale several years ago. And they ran. And they ran to people that accepted them. That just smoothed over the situation. I'm telling you what, brethren, when we do that, when we're like patting a dog on the head, it's okay, boy, you know. There's trouble. When we run from God, we put others in danger. And when we run from the problems of the church, when we run from the problems of our lives, you know what? What if something happened? What if Mike Garrison taught something that I didn't like on Sunday morning Bible class? Just what if? That's not going to happen, I don't think, but just what if? And I said, well, I'm just going to take my toys and I'm going home. He said, Mike, you know so much, buddy, you can have it all. And I go. What happens? Don't you begin to doubt him? Don't you begin to doubt me and my motive? You see, brethren, the Bible is filled with examples about hitting things head on. We put others in danger when we do that. Sometimes we can expect to fish. Sometimes we can expect a second chance. And sometimes we get that second chance. But we're not a cat. We don't have 9 lives. We don't have 2 lives. We have 1 life. And that 1 life is what we have to guard under every circumstance. It's something we've got to continually to look ourselves in the mirror, to make sure we're right with God. We only have 1 life. And today, you may, or I may, we may have only 1 opportunity. And we do this for our salvation. But when we do the right thing, look at the sermon we're preaching. It's a better sermon than I can ever preach. But what happens when we have influence and we just don't do the right thing? We refuse to do the right thing. Look at the doubt it's going to cause in everybody else. This is about us, as we mentioned at the first of the lesson. But it is about things and others that go far past us. What we do and how we handle God's Word is going to mean life and death. It is life and death. And if we look at it and we decide that something in the Bible is not essential and we don't do it, it's death. But then look at how many other people we might have put in danger because we had a little, quote, following. Everybody wants to be important. But I'm telling you, and it just scares me to death. I've got people that listen to me every Sunday. I've got people I'm studying with that's wanting to know the truth. Mike has been in that situation, and Mike Matlock's been in that situation. Andy, which let me digress for a minute, I heard did an awesome job with the Bible class Wednesday night. I told you to teach. But I'm proud of Andy. Andy hadn't ran. He doesn't like to teach, I don't think. It's not his favorite thing. But you know what? He'll do it. He's not going to run from it. And neither will any of you run from anything, and I'm proud of you, and I commend you for that. So this morning, as we examine our lives, well, let's not run. Let's run to the truth and run to the Lord. If you're subject to the gospel invitation this morning, sure hope you'll come as together we stand and sing for your encouragement.